A few years ago, I created a video titled How to Attract Millionaires When Broke, and it's become one of my most viewed videos on this channel. So today I want to revisit the topic, but instead I want to talk about how we can cultivate wealth in our own life, because in order to attract a man who is high quality and high status, we need to embody those traits as well. And remember, wealth is not just about your possessions and how much you own and your net worth, but it's a mindset, it's an embodiment, it's seen in the way in which you walk through the world, it's seen in your confidence, it's seen in the way that you approach situations, it's seen in your conversations, in your purchase history. All of these things reveal if you truly are wealthy through and through. So the first thing that I did to become a wealthy woman is to start thinking in terms of percentages. Percentages are really key. Okay, so I think a lot of times when we haven't really manifested the numbers that we want in our bank account, it starts seeming really out of reach. I always like to think in terms of percentages. So what percentage did that person gain in terms of their income or in terms of their net worth? Sometimes it's really hard for us to grasp a certain number because it's out of reach. It's not within our usual day-to-day life that we see those types of numbers. So, for example, I'm sure that a lot of us see these celebrities purchasing cars that are well over $500,000. And in your head, you're thinking, oh my God, like I don't even have that type of money in my bank account. In those situations, what I do is I always divide the price of that car by that individual's net worth, right? So let's say that the car is $500,000, but the person is worth $50 million. Well, in that case, the car is literally only 1% of that person's net worth. So then you start thinking, okay, if I bought a car that was just 1% of my net worth, in a sense, you are putting the same amount of energy and effort and resources into that car as that person did. It's just on a different scale. So this is so important when it comes to thinking about purchases, when it comes to just thinking about your growth. So something that I do is I track my net worth year by year. And instead of looking at the actual number, I always look at the percent that I have grown, because the percent is what's really telling. Perhaps your income only grew by $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. However, in terms of a percent, maybe that percent is 40% or 50% or 60% of your general income. So when you start thinking in terms of percentages, your life is going to change because you are going to see wealth as being accessible to you. And so another example of this is I follow this guy on Instagram, Chris Johnson. I'm sure that you guys have probably heard of him if you're into Bitcoin or dividend income or anything like that, because that's kind of what his persona is all about. And he will post his gains when it comes to his Bitcoin earnings. And these numbers are just so unfathomable to most people, right? Like this guy might be up $8 million in Bitcoin. But when I look at the percentage, it gives me this sense of hope, because I'm thinking, well, I'm up the same percentage. My number might not be 8 million today, but I'm still up X amount percent-wise, right? So now I actually feel like I can make a difference in my life. I can make a change in my life. The numbers might not be 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures, but the percentages are the same. Even if you put $1,000 into the stock market and you go up 10%, that might only be $100. But as as you compound and as you add to that and as you accumulate more wealth, 10% on $10,000 is going to be $1,000. 10% on $100,000 is going to be $10,000. So it's just a matter of scale. And once you start looking at the world like that, you start realizing that actually your number, your goals, your dream achievements are a lot more manageable and a lot more accessible than you would have previously thought. So start thinking in terms of percentages rather than actual numbers. Instead of focusing on making $100,000 this year, try to make 25% more than you did last year. Instead of trying to make $50,000 in the stock market this year, instead think about trying to make 15% of whatever you put in there. At the end of the day, growth is growth, and as long as you have a percent that is increasing and growing, then you are on the right track. You are implementing that mindset and that value of abundance. The next thing that I did in order to become a wealthy woman is to follow my own path. Stop following the beaten path that everyone else follows, that you think you need to do the same thing in order to get results. Actually, a lot of times going against the grain and doing something differently or having a unique approach can really set you apart. So some of the things that I did that really weren't typical was starting to make money and have a job by the age of 11. So while people were out playing with friends and going to the mall, I was working. And at the time, it might have seemed miserable, but I knew that I was basically working for my future freedom. And I knew that if I built those habits of discipline from a young age, then that would really pay off as time went on. Some of the other things that I did was after college, a lot of my friends and roommates, forked out every last penny they had to sign a lease and to get their own apartment. I, on the other hand, moved back in with my mom. So at the time, that looked like I was taking a big L. It looked like I was a loser, like I was, going backwards, right? Because I had just spent 4 years on my own, living with roommates, living on campus and also off campus. And then now I was resorting back to living with my family. But I knew that if I lived with my mom for a few years, I could then save up money. I could invest money. I could start a business because I actually had the funds to do so. So something that might seem like you're taking an L, or maybe you're doing something that your peers or your classmates or the people that your age are not doing, that can actually be a blessing in disguise. So looking back now, I know a lot of the things that I did that at the time seemed like not the right decision actually ended up paving the way for me. Another thing that was huge to where I am today was deciding to ditch my dreams of medical school. So that's actually something that at the time I got a lot of heat, I got a lot of judgment, I got a lot of criticism for, why would I go to college and spend 4 years of my life and all this time studying and doing all these things and ditching that dream. It seemed like a bad move. But now I look around and my same peers who went to medical school are now $200,000, $300,000 in debt, and they're just starting their careers. Meanwhile, I've built a business for over 5 years. I have my own path now, and I'm not saying that my path is better or worse, but I'm just saying that I decided to follow my passions and follow my heart, even though that wasn't what was expected of me, even though that wasn't the norm, even though that wasn't what everyone else was doing. And now I have a lot more freedom than other people my age. I have a lot more resources than people my age because I didn't need to go in debt. I didn't need to study for an additional 8 years. And because of that, I saved a lot of time, I saved a lot of money, and while they were in school studying, I was able to build my assets, to invest, to build my business, and all these things that have really paid off. So I really encourage you to follow your own path, even if it might look different from anyone else, even if you might be going against the grain. That's actually a beautiful thing, and it pays off. The next thing that really helped me become a wealthy woman is not having liabilities. And I don't mean that I don't have a car or something like that, but I don't have any kids and I don't have any pets. So I'm sure that I'm getting a lot of rolled eyes or like annoyed, feelings on the other side, but I will tell you hands down that that has been the best decision, one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. I know that if I had a child or a pet or something that I needed to take care of fully and to invest my time and resources and money into, I just simply would not have the life that I have today. My husband and I both have the freedom to travel whenever we want without having to call a babysitter, without having to look for a dog sitter. We are able to save, invest, and enjoy all of our money because we don't have a kid that we need to pay for. And kids are expensive. Daycare is expensive. Tutors are expensive. Childcare is expensive. All of these things add up. And it's not just about the financial investment, but it's about the emotional investment. I'm sure that if I had pets or a child, I would not be able to invest my free time into the things that I love, into my YouTube, into my coaching business, into my other passions. I simply wouldn't be able to read as many books. I wouldn't be able to travel to the places that I do and at the frequency that I do. So it's a simple fact that everyone's going to have their own priorities, but when it comes to those who want to prioritize wealth and building a life of freedom, I truly don't think that having a pet or having children, especially in your 20s, is beneficial or fruitful for that outcome. Now, everyone has their own goals. Everyone is entitled to live the life that they want, and I'm not judging anyone who does that. I know many friends who have children, and that is their pride and joy, and they're happy to earn an average income or to have, a normal net worth, because for them, their kids are an adequate trade-off. For me and my husband personally, we both knew, right off the bat from meeting one another, that we really just didn't want that stress. We didn't want that financial commitment. We didn't want to be just tied into caring for a pet or an actual human being for, decades. It was just too big of an investment, and we preferred to pour that money and time and energy into each other, into our careers, and into enjoying our life to the fullest. Along with not having any liabilities, I also prioritized ownership. And this is one of the key parts of this video, honestly. If you're gonna take away one thing from this video, let it be this. At the end of the day, no person who has amassed a large amount of money or wealth or, just power is an employee. We really need to understand this as individuals, because this American dream that tells you to go to college, get a job, get married, have kids, it doesn't work for most people if you want to be extraordinary, if you want to be the top 10%, the top 5%, the top 1%. It simply doesn't. You need to be an owner. You need to own something. And there are so many different ways to do this. You can own content. There are individuals who, just like me, create YouTube videos, create podcasts, even some of them create music or, create TV shows or whatever, and they are getting royalties from that content, and they are getting paid while they sleep. Other people take ownership by owning a business, which is also something that I have done in my life. So when you own a business, you can actually create generational wealth. You can actually scale at a level that you just simply cannot do as an employee. You can set your own hourly rate, you can set your own schedule, you have a lot more freedom, and you can create the life of your dreams. Other people, perhaps they are employees, but they get ownership by owning stocks, by owning assets, by owning Bitcoin. So that is another method of wealth accumulation that I do, that I believe in, is owning a piece of a company. It's so amazing that I have access to all of these different companies' growth, right? Year after year, as these companies grow, as they increase their dividends, as their revenue goes up, I am getting rewarded for that. Just sitting here at my house, and all I had to do was invest in those companies, was put some money into those shares so that I have a small fractional piece of that company. So even if, let's say, perhaps you don't have a business, or perhaps you don't have content, at least at the minimum, you should have assets to your name, and that means ownership of companies, ownership of stocks, of Bitcoin, of any of these things. I can tell you hands down that my net worth, the majority of it, is not because I save a bunch. It's because the assets that I own continue to grow, continue to compound, continue to multiply. It's at a rate that you simply cannot see in a savings account, in a CD even, in, just in a normal job. You can't see 50%, 70%, 100% growth in any job, in any position that I know of within a year. But you can see that with some stocks. You can see that with Bitcoin. You can see that by owning your own business. If you own your own business, then you are responsible for your revenue, for your clientele. You are able to run ads, then market your product or your service, so you can truly scale at an unfathomable rate. So that is personally what I have done in my life to become a wealthy person, was to start thinking in terms of ownership. Ownership literally gets me excited. Like, I wake up every morning and check my portfolio, and I'm excited to find new opportunities. I'm excited to reinvest. I'm excited to learn more and figure out how I can diversify, how can I improve my portfolio? And it honestly gets me excited. And I know for a fact, if more people have that mentality about getting excited about ownership, instead of getting excited to watch a Netflix show or getting excited to go on a shopping spree, if they had that same level of excitement to actually invest and become owners, then they could build wealth, and it would be a lot more easy than they think it is. Along the same lines of ownership, being committed to curiosity is a game changer. It is absolutely a game changer. Since I was a young girl, I had this thirst for knowledge. I had this curiosity about just how people are able to amass wealth, how they built their business, how they were able to innovate a certain industry, how they were able to grow at rates that aren't typically seen in their typical age range. So from a young age, I was committed to learning how to be different, how to be unique, how to set myself apart. And so that took me on a journey of learning, right? So many books, so many YouTube channels, so many podcasts that I have digested, so many autobiographies and memoirs where I'm learning from the best of the best to figure out what they did differently. And not only that, but even in my day-to-day life, like when I'm driving to the grocery store and I perhaps will see signs, multiple signs of a certain company, and I haven't heard about it, that night I will go on my computer and research them. I will figure out, are they a publicly traded company? Can I get shares? How is their stock doing? I have just had this need and this drive to want to learn more. For example, when my dad worked at Broadcom, I wanted to know, how much did the CEO make? How did he become the CEO? What was the payment structure? Were the employees getting shares? So all of these things, it made me an individual that wasn't just ignorant to what was going on in the economy. And let me tell you, there are certain things that I am ignorant in, and I will happily say that. Like when it comes to the news or politics or whatever, I'm ignorant to that because I don't care. I'm in my own lane. I'm focusing on my journey, my growth, my wealth. And you need to know what to be an expert in. You need to know what to prioritize. And a lot of people will prioritize the latest celebrity gossip, the latest, murder story that's breaking in the news. And they're not really focusing on the things that they have control over. So start going around in your day-to-day life and being more curious. When someone tells me I work for this company or this is my position, I immediately go and research that company. I research what they do, what they offer their employees, how much the employees get paid. And then you start looking at things from a very different perspective where you start noticing trends, you start noticing patterns, you start realizing what's going on in your town. And I don't mean current events, but I mean actual wealth creation and how some people are able to live in a $10 million house and why others are struggling to make ends meet. So you start really noticing the difference, and also you start noticing your privilege, and you start noticing that a lot of these things, you're either born into it or you're not. However, you have the ability and the control to make decisions every single day that will change your life. I truly do believe that, yes, unfortunately, some people are just born at a disadvantage. And that's the truth of the matter, unfortunately. But even as simple as being born in America, when you travel and you start realizing how much of a gift that is, how much of a privilege that is, how much that we are blessed with on a day-to-day basis that we don't even realize, like clean water and electricity that's consistent and things like that, even just help from the government and grants and the ability to research anything and to be able to start a business and have free mentorship, then you start realizing that you are the author of your life, and that even if, let's say, you were born at a disadvantage, you actually have a lot more tools and a lot more resources and a lot more opportunities than most people. So you start taking advantage of that. You start digging deeper, you start learning, and you start actually making a difference in your life. Another piece of this, which I mentioned earlier, was starting young. That alone has set me apart from most people. I started investing in the stock market at age 22. The people who started at 18 had a leg up on me, right? But anyone who starts in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s is worse off. So the earlier that you get involved, that you get invested, that you start something of substance, that you are able to actually make a small investment, even if it's $100, even if it's just starting a little side hustle where you make shirts or whatever it is, start now, because the earlier you start, the more time you have to adapt, to change, to grow, to pivot, to improve. So start young, and that is going to give you such an advantage. The next thing that I did to get my wealth up and to focus on myself and to grow was to start saying no. This is a skill that I think so many of us need to learn. I'm still working on it myself, but it is just so important that we are able to say no when we truly don't feel this burning desire to do something, to be somewhere, to hang out with someone, to attend a certain thing. When you are able to say no, you foster that sense of discipline, of control, of standing in your truth. And this can be as simple to saying no to a job that you're not interested in, to saying no to your parents even. Perhaps they want you to follow a path and you know that this path is not for you. Say no to that. Say no to anyone and anything that does not serve your highest potential, that does not serve your dream life, that does not make you so excited and fiery inside. Within the past 6 months, I just became a pro at saying no to people, to events, to doing certain things, and I watched my life completely transform. My husband and I moved out of state. We bought our dream home. I'm basically at a level both financially, physically, emotionally that I have never been before anywhere in my life. I started saying no to those things, and I started saying yes to myself, yes to my fitness, yes to my learning. Like all of the things that I used to dream about, I now prioritize. So, for example, I've always wanted to really set the time to read every single day. And I would always say that to everyone. Like, my dream life is just being able to read all day and get paid in my sleep. However, I wasn't committing myself to really making that a reality. So, for example, let's say that I had some work and now it was finally my time to read, but someone asked me, you want to FaceTime, or you want to go for dinner, or anything. Even if it's your own family or your own husband who has a request from you, or who has, a question of you wanting to do something with them. And in those moments, I would know, oh, dang it, like this is my time to read. But I would just neglect that, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, well, I'd go along with it. And these past 6 months, I got into this habit where I was like, no. If I made a promise to myself that aligns with my dream life, whether that's working out, whether that's filming a video, whether that's reading a book, then I am going to do that. I do not care if the world is burning down. I don't care how many people are calling me. I don't care who needs me or who wants to see me or hang out. I am prioritizing me and my dreams. And that is going to make you wealthy in a whole different way. You're going to be wealthy in terms of just knowing that you say what you say you're going to do and you actually commit to it. You are going to have this newfound confidence because you know that people can't just push you around. People can't just dictate what you're going to do with your days because you are intentional. So I really encourage you to start learning how to say no. Doesn't matter if it's to a friend, to a family, to your husband. Learn how to say no. Most times when you say no to things or people, you're actually saying yes to yourself, to your dream life, to the things that you actually want. Another thing that I have said no to are certain ways of thinking or certain common phrases that people use. So this always makes me giggle a little bit, but I'm sure everyone has heard this. Money comes and goes, right? It's like a saying that everyone says. But when you start realizing how important your words are, how important your thoughts are, how important the things that you say are, and how they actually show up and manifest in your world, you will realize that there's so many phrases and so many ways of thinking that people have that are not conducive to their dream life. So anytime I hear someone say money comes and goes, I say no, money comes and grows. Because that is the value that I believe in. That is the truth that I hold. That is the way of thinking that I'm embodied in. So I'm not sitting here saying money comes and goes. No, I don't believe that. I believe that money comes and that money grows. And this can be seen in so many different things that people say. Like some people say more money, more problems. I don't believe that. No, I think more money, more joy. So you start creating your own narrative, your own ways of thinking, your own phrases that actually match up and line up with your dream world. Because you can't sit here and say that I believe that I'm going to be a millionaire. I am doing, everything in my power to grow and evolve and invest and adapt. And then in the same vein say, oh, I believe money is evil, right? You're holding two contradictory thoughts. So you really need to be intentional with what you say no to. And a lot of times, it's not even saying no to people or things, but it's saying no to ways of thinking. It's saying no to certain phrases. It's saying no to just certain terminology that you know that does not serve you. So it can be as simple as when you make a mistake and the first thing you think is, oh, I'm so dumb or I'm so stupid. No, you are not going to be saying or thinking those negative things about yourself. So really be in tune with the thoughts you're having and the words you're speaking, because those will show up in your life and they will come true. So you better hope that the things that you're thinking and saying line up with wherever it is that you want to go. Another thing that I did that made me a wealthy individual was learning from those who have what I want. So instead of experiencing jealousy or envy or being like, oh, she has that, but I want it, I see anyone who has what I want as inspiration, as a model, as someone to emulate, and as someone to learn from. So this has been huge for me, because I noticed this a lot with women, that instead of feeling happy for other women or being empowered when they see that woman, you know, doing well, achieving a lot of money, or being in her dream marriage, instead of wishing well for her and knowing like, wow, if she was able to get that, then I know I can too. For some reason, a lot of women trigger this like lack mentality where they're like, oh no, well, she has it, that means I can't have it. And I don't know how bonkers that is, because once someone was able to land on the moon, that gave a lot of other astronauts the green flag that they could also go to the moon. So why don't you look at other people who have achieved love, happiness, wealth, their dream body, and look at that as inspiration and as truth, as, you know, as a physical representation that, hey, this is possible for me too. So instead of following people on social media who were complaining, who were in victim mentality, I started following women who had the life that I desired. They had the marriage that I wanted. They had the body that I liked. And I started looking to those women for guidance. I started looking at them and saying, hey, what are they doing different? What are they doing that I'm not currently doing? How can I bring more of this energy into my day-to-day life so that I'm becoming more attractive and more magnetic to my dream life? Right? So start learning from the people who have whatever it is that you want. And it can be in any area of your life. So if you want a certain physique, start going and following, you know, YouTube workouts from women who have that sort of build. If you really desire to have a happy, thriving marriage and to be a wonderful parent, then start following people who show that example to you, who show that example of a healthy family and beautiful dynamics with their children. Nowadays, it is so accessible to be able to learn from people firsthand how they were able to achieve the things that they have. So there really is no excuse. You have all the tools right in front of you, right? Whether it's on social media, whether it's reading a book, whether it's listening to a podcast, and that is truly how I have been able to improve every single area of my life. The next thing that I did to become a wealthy woman was to start investing in experiences. So from a young age, I've been pretty good about just paying for the thing that I wanted, right? Like if I wanted to go to a steakhouse dinner, I don't care if I had to save up a week for it, I was going. I've always really had that abundant mentality and that mentality that if I want it, I can have it. But a lot of times, for some reason, I'm not sure why, it's easy to buy an object that we think we want, right? Whether it's the dress, whether it's the jewelry, whether it's the cute shoes. But when it comes to experiences, sometimes we start skimping out. Like, is it really worth it to go to this coaching event? Is it really worth it to pay for help or pay for a service? Is it really worth it to upgrade my flight? Is it really worth it to stay in the 5-star hotel? And anytime I get into this mentality, I'm like, what the hell are you thinking? Like, if you want to be a wealthy woman, you better start acting like it. So you better start investing in those experiences. You can't just look like $1 million, but then be going to cheap restaurants and crappy hotels and just skimping out when it comes to the actual experiences that you're taking in. Your experiences accumulate to make up your life and to make up your memories. So of course, if you want to be wealthy, you better start investing in those experiences. And that means going to nicer restaurants, going to nicer hotels, going to paid events, right? And this actually brings me to my next point, which I stopped going for freebies. I didn't care if I got a coupon in the mail. I didn't care if the meal was a cheaper price during happy hour. I didn't care about attending some free workshop because I knew that the things that have value should have a cost. And this is actually a subconscious thing too. In the past, this was like years ago when I first started my YouTube journey, I gave some offer in my Instagram, which makes me cringe right now, but it was like a free coaching call to help you get set up, with your finances or whatever it was. And I was like, oh my God, this is so great. Like, I'm able to help someone. I'm able to impart my knowledge and my skills to someone and help them, get their finances in order. And guess what happened? The woman who reached out to me and messaged me and said that she'd love to set up a call didn't show up. And you know why? It was because it was free. It was because she didn't have any skin in the game. It was because she really didn't care to show up and to really be invested in something. So we need to realize that when we get something for free or when we attend something that's free, we're not going to get the same thing out of it that we would have had we paid. When my husband buys me a gift, as much as I love it and appreciate and adore it, it just simply doesn't hit the same as if I bought myself the same thing. And it's because when I buy it, my skin is in the game. I've had to work for it. I had to invest. I had to put my time, my money, my energy into being able to afford that thing. So I'm not saying that gifts are bad. I'm not saying that if someone offers you something and you didn't have to pay for it, it's a bad thing. I'm just saying don't go seeking those things out. Especially as women, a lot of women just want someone who's going to come and pay their rent and pay their bills and pay what. Okay, but there isn't much fulfillment in that. There isn't much satisfaction in living a life where someone's just covering everything and you're just sitting like a doll and not having any purpose, right? So even in the same vein, you guys know that I'm all about masculine men. I'm all about being provided for. I'm all about, being with a man who wants to buy me gifts. However, I also realize that when I really want something, sometimes I don't even tell my husband and I just buy the damn thing because I know that I'm going to get a different level of satisfaction, of fulfillment, of achievement from doing it on my own. And this is crucial. This is why freebies are not that free. I'm sure you guys have heard that saying that there's no such thing as a free lunch. And it is so true. A lot of times when we think that we're getting something for free, we don't really care much about it, and a lot of times we're just doing it or getting it because it's free, because it's on sale, because it's discounted, but we truly don't desire it deep down. We're truly not invested in the outcome. Okay, so stop seeking out freebies and start actually working hard and working smart for the things that you want and the things that you desire. Last but not least is having a clear, defined vision. I put this at the end because we've all heard the vision thing, but there is a lot in having a vision. I've had a vision board before, maybe I'll throw up a picture, and so many of those things came true for me. Now, was it because I had the vision board? Nobody will ever know, but I do know that having that image in front of me every day as a representation for what I was working towards made a difference. And this goes with everything in your life. You know, if you write something down in your calendar, you know about it, you're reminded of it, you see it, you're prepared for it. And if you're creating a business, having a plan gives you structure, gives you a written idea of what's to come, of what you can expect, of the overview, of the roles. And so having a vision is so important when it comes to being wealthy, because we all need to have a goal. We all need to have a number. I talk about this in my video that I recently posted, which was how to thrive in both money and love. And definitely go watch that video after this. But in that video, I talk about how my husband and I both came up with our number. And this is crucial because it gave us an idea of where we are and where we're headed. And when we're able to put things out there and write them down, or even just have them in our head, then we know what we're working towards, right? So I had the goal of owning 1 Bitcoin for years, and at times it seemed like such a far-fetched reality, right? Because I maybe only had 5,000 in there, maybe only had 10,000 in there. But over time, as I slowly chipped away at that goal and made it a priority that every month, every so often, I was putting a few hundred in, I was able to achieve that goal of having 1 Bitcoin. And so now my new goal is to have 10 Bitcoin. And that is how goals work, is like, you might have a goal that is kind of this far from where you're at, and then once you hit that goal, you can up the bar, you can up the notch a little bit. And that is really what I inspire you guys all to do, is to start looking at your dream life as achievable. Maybe you're not going to have all these things that you desire next week or next year, but in the next decade, it's likely. If you do these things, if you implement these ways of thinking, these values, these habits, these attitudes, then you truly do have a shot at acquiring wealth. Not just with your possessions, not just with your net worth, not just with your bank account number, but with actually having that embodiment of feeling wealthy, of feeling abundant, of feeling so blessed and so beyond grateful for every single thing you have. Because I know that that's exactly what I've been able to do. So let me know what you guys thought about this video. Definitely comment down below what values you hold about wealth, about money, about investing. I'd love to hear from you. And also make sure to subscribe before you head out. Thank you so much for being here. I love you guys. Bye.